digital staff. There we go. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Community Development Housing General Government meeting today, October 11, 2022. We have 5 consent agenda items and we have 4 general agenda items. And we start with the consent agenda first, asking council and committee members if they have any items that they want pulled. We have C3, seems to be the only one, and if that is it.
I'll move approval of the balance, Madam Chairman.
Second.
It's been moved and properly seconded to approve the balance of the consent agenda. If you will vote. And it passes unanimously. Thank you. City Clerk, would you please call item C3?
Item C3, resolution adopting the recommendations from an operational and programmatic assessment of the Winston-Salem Forsyth County Continuum of Care and authorizing their implementation.
Ms. Newman, how you doing?
Good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, members of the council. I'm Marla Newman, Community Development Director. Glad to be with you this afternoon. What I have today is a follow-up to a presentation we made in August, and you're adopting the assessment that was performed of the Continuum of Care, also known as the COC. We had an independent third party do an assessment of our COC, looking at its operations and functions, and it provided a number of data points, and it provided information that was culled from a number of focus groups, stakeholder meetings, and surveys. And then based on that assessment, then the home-based organization made a series of recommendations. And then those recommendations are to be presented to you today as part of an action plan on the way forward. How do we go about strengthening the ability of our continuum of care to better serve those persons who are either currently experiencing or are at risk of experiencing homelessness? And so today, what I'd like to do is introduce to you again, many of you have become familiar with Matt Weber. Matt Weber is with Homebase, and he is here with us today to walk us through the action plan that has been derived from the actual assessment. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Matt with your approval.
Thank you. Hi again. Would you give us your name and address for the record, please?
Sure. I am Matt Weber. I reside at 4 Lois Court, Ann Arbor, Michigan, 48103. So, happy to be back in front of you all today. Ms. Newman covered a good chunk of what I was going to share to bring you back up to speed. I am with Homebase, as she said. We're a national nonprofit organization providing technical assistance to communities around the country in their efforts to prevent and end homelessness. In that capacity, the city hired us to conduct this assessment of their COC, trying to figure out what's working well and what we might add or change to make it better. As Ms. Newman said, we did a lot of different kinds of analysis to get at those questions. And I was here in August to share with you, some of our findings and recommendations. And we presented some of the areas that were areas of strength for the COC, and then we highlighted 7 different areas where there were opportunities for improvement. And when I was here in August, one of the questions that you asked was, so is that it? Do you make your recommendations and go away? And I said, well, actually we are in the process of putting together an implementation plan. I think in that interim time, you've received the full report with our recommendations, and you received that fairly detailed implementation plan. And I really want to focus mostly on the implementation plan part of it. What I'm going to talk about today, though, is kind of high level. Like, the implementation plan's got a lot of detailed info in it. I'm going to focus on just a couple of the implementation steps and trust that you all have kind of read what's there, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have on that.
Chair.
When I was...
Chair.
Yes.
Matt, can I get you just for people in the audience, people at home, just to do a real quick overview of what COC is.
Sure. So the COC stands for Continuum of Care, and every sizable community has it. It's sort of a wonky industry term. What it really means for kind of without the wonkiness in there, it's all the different entities, people involved in trying to work on homelessness issues. And that homelessness touches such a wide range of things. So it addresses housing, but it also addresses social services, it addresses mental health, physical health, the school systems are involved, police, fire, and to get all those sprawling parts together. A few years ago, HUD said every community has to have some system in place to coordinate that effort. And HUD, in its wonkiness, said we're going to call that a continuum of care. So Winston-Salem, Forsyth County have a county-wide continuum of care that embraces a lot of different entities. So it's sort of a concept and it's sort of an organization, but it's more of an organization in the sense of bringing a bunch of other organizations together and trying to get them to work together.
Thank you.
So last time I was here, I highlighted that one of our concerns was the COC structure. And as you know, the COC's kind of got this sprawling structure. Folks, we've got like committees and work groups down here working out sort of the day-to-day issues in operating a homeless system of care. And then way on this end, we've got overseeing body, the Commission on Ending Homelessness, that officially has the responsibility to oversee that COC as a whole. And we heard concerns about that structure was leading to problems with engagement, with getting actions. Folks reported, we talk a lot, but we don't actually get a lot done. And so there felt like there needed to be some structural changes to address some of those issues. So just to remind you all, this is what your COC currently, how it's structured. The Commission on Ending Homelessness, as I said, oversees the operation of the COC. It's made up of people appointed by the city, folks appointed by the county, and then some representatives from the operating cabinet. The operating cabinet is kind of largest group, 35 to 40 entities, of the people who are most involved in the homeless system of care. All those agencies out there on the ground doing their best to work with people experiencing homelessness or at risk of homelessness. And then a lot of that work, the work of the operating cabinet, gets done within these various COC committees and work groups. Some of the same people who sit on the operating cabinet are also in those committees and work groups. Sometimes you've got other folks who are only at that work group level. And then supporting that activity, we've got its staff from the United Way in its role as the fiscal agent and the operator of the coordinated entry system for homelessness, which is how we go about assessing people if they need help from the homeless system of care, what sort of help they need, how we prioritize them, and how we get them the resources that they need. And then we've also got staffing from the city as the lead, the HMIS lead and the collaborative applicant, which is the city's job is to get all of these agencies together and figure out what sort of funding are we going to go for, how are we going to distribute it, who's going to get access to it. So our recommendation was to restructure the COC to make the operating cabinet the main decision-making body, the place where all those day-to-day issues get decided, to tighten up the distance between the day-to-day workings, the people who are on the ground dealing with these issues, and hopefully making it easier to get actions through the operating cabinet. Question is, what role does that leave for the Commission on Ending Homelessness? And we're proposing it's, continues to play one of the roles it's supposed to be playing already, which is an advisory body, advising the city, advising the county, and the operating cabinet on big issues. And we actually really see three big roles for the COEH. One is, when city council needs input on a particular issue, they can be sort of your blue ribbon commission on X, whatever the X needs to be. We heard when we talked to folks here, there's a real feeling that we need a more thoughtful approach to dealing with encampments in Forsyth County. And so the COEH could take that on as we are going to help coordinate that effort, figure out what is our approach to encampments. And that kind of points to a second important role, because to deal with an issue like encampments, we need to do cross-jurisdictional coordination. And because of the way the COEH is comprised, it's well positioned to play that role. It's got access to county folks, city folks, and to those agencies on the ground who are doing that. Then the third role that we see for it is really engaging the community in conversations around homelessness, getting folks involved in that conversation, helping folks realize that it is a community-wide concern. It's something that we all need to address, helping to bring resources outside of just what the COC is able to bring to bear on that homelessness issue. Now, one of the concerns we've heard from folks is that, well, if the operating cabinet's making all these decisions, won't there be conflicts of interest, especially around funding? This kind of structure we're recommending is adopted in lots of communities around the country. The conflict of interest issue is addressed really by having, if there's a conflict, folks with a conflict recuse themselves. And what it means is you have to populate that operating cabinet in a way that you've got members on there who aren't going, not everyone's going for that same funding pot. If people are looking for funds from one, say the Emergency Solutions Grant, not everyone recuses themselves. You still have members, you still have, school system, you might have Chamber of Commerce, you might have hospitals, you've got other people on there who can play those, who can make those decisions without having to recuse themselves. So it's a system that's worked in lots of communities, and we think it would work here. Last time I was here, we talked about some concerns about leadership, and one of those was lack of clarity over roles, and because of that lack of clarity, there were problems in the operation of the COC. Like some issues just it wasn't clear how to get actions taken there. Sometimes, because of that lack of clarity, decisions were being made outside of what people thought were the usual processes. That was leading to conflict. So in our action plan, we've got recommendations on delineating those roles more clearly. On engagement, we heard from some folks in the COC, or some folks working on homelessness issues, that they're not engaged in the COC, in part because they don't really understand how it functions. They don't feel like there's a place for them. So one of our action step recommendations is to do kind of an orientation training for everyone involved in the COC, kind of lay out how is this sprawling system supposed to work, and do that not just once, but on an ongoing basis, so that as personnel change, as leadership changes, as roles change, we continue to bring folks on board with how things should be operating. Community Intake Center, again, this is your coordinated entry. This is how people come into the homeless system of care. We highlighted several issues we saw in the CIC, but also recognized getting clear recommendations on how to fix the Community Intake Center really requires a deeper dive. So our recommendation is contracting with a third party, someone not directly involved in the continuum of care, to evaluate that system particularly. And then what I've highlighted on the screen there is, once we get those recommendations, let's actually implement them to improve that coordinated entry system. Shelter and housing. It seems as though we've got some permanent supportive housing resources in the community that aren't being used to best advantage. We heard from several people working on the front line who said, there are folks who really would benefit from permanent supportive housing, which means they're getting supportive services to keep them housed. But they're not getting placed there, and that there isn't somebody for them to turn to really make that system work better. So we're recommending you either internally find that expert who can play that point person role, or if we can't find it internally, then let's find it outside of the system to consult and make that system work better. So it feels like every conversation we had with folks about services, comments were made about document readiness, which was people weren't able to get access to services because they weren't document ready. We didn't have all the documentation in place to show that they qualified for these various benefits. And there was a lot of concern, particularly from frontline workers, that folks were kind of languishing in this process. Sometimes wasn't clear who was supposed to be solving these document ready problems, and we needed to improve that. So we've got recommendations in the action plan on how to address that document ready issue. Finally, on data, a common theme from our conversations was we collect a lot of data, but we don't really use it strategically. So we've got recommendations about forming a data committee and giving them the responsibility for not just collecting that information, but really thinking through how does this information inform the services and work we're going to be doing ahead. So that is a super quick overview. I think that's where I'm going to pause. So, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Matt. Are there any questions? Councilmember Clark?
I guess I would address this to Ms. Newman. Who runs the Continuum of Care? Is there any chairman, executive director, or whatever? Because this is a big animal to get your hands around.
Good afternoon again, Councilmember Clark. That's part of the challenge. It's not just a one person who runs the Continuum of Care. You have the Commission on Ending Homelessness, but then you have the operating cabinet. There's some lack of clarity about who's on first, who's on second.
Okay.
So that's why we were going through this process.
Okay. Just a comment, you're recommending this operating committee to be the focal point, and you say there's 35 members?
I think in the governing documents, it can go up to, I don't recall whether it's 35 or 40.
Okay. I have been on boards that big. They're good at disseminating information because you got everybody represented. But a 35-person committee is not going to get anything done unless it's with a dictator in charge. By the time everybody introduces themselves, the meeting's over because it took 2 hours to do it.
Yeah.
So I have been on a big board in this town, and we had a board that big, and the executive committee of that board was the actually functioning body. So we'll see, but this is not what I would have designed because I just think that's too big a board to do what you want them to do.
And so I didn't expressly mention it, but I hope you saw on the slide, we actually do have an executive committee recommendation to streamline some of that.
Any other comments or questions? Councilmember Larson?
Yes, could I get some clarity on the number of staff it would take to implement this and estimated budget of what it would cost to implement this program? Have any estimates have been produced on this yet?
So there are a lot of different components of it. I don't have a full number. A lot of it is like the structural changes I think can be done with the existing staffing. It will require time from agencies, those stakeholders in there to carry that through. So that's kind of on the lighter end. The CIC evaluation is going to take more resources because that's going to require an outside funder. But I don't have dollar figures on all those.
If we're gonna start implementing this, what is the first thing we do?
So we did lay out in the action plan sort of our recommendations for like what are the the year one implementation steps and then what's further down the line.
Okay, thank you.
Matt, could you just go ahead, Councilmember Scipio?
Thank you. This is a very interesting report, but it seems so awkward. Seems like there's a commission on ending homelessness that has a number of people on it. Then there's an operating cabinet that has more people on it, and possibly some of the people from the commission. Is that right? And then we have the subcommittees. So the whole thing is just so big, and we just need to streamline it. Can the operating cabinet, what did you think in terms of mailing it into the commission? Do we need the commission and the operating cabinet? I guess that's what I'm asking. Can we just have one that has subgroups in it?
So you absolutely can. There are lots of communities, there are communities around the country who have like this advisory body that the COEH would become. And there are communities in the country that don't have that. So you could go with either. We definitely see value, particularly the folks who currently make up the COEH have, they have lots of community ties, lots of ties to resources, and it's valuable to tie into those. If this is feeling too sprawling, it's certainly within your bounds to say, we're not going to go that far.
And clarify this, the Commission on Ending Homelessness are all volunteers? There are no staff positions?
So the United Way and the city currently provide staffing support to the Commission on Ending Homelessness.
That means they're designated persons we pay to be, are those persons like executive directors, or what are they titled?
So the way the governing documents are currently established, and you have all of those different entities in place right now, the Commission on Ending Homelessness, the operating cabinet, the working groups, and the like. And then you have the staff in community development that provide staff support to those entities. And then you have the United Way that also provides some level of staff support to those entities as well. It is large, and in some respects, it feels a little discombobulated. And that's part of what we're trying to do, is figure out how to make it a little less cumbersome. But we actually do the day-to-day support of those entities. But now when you get to the work group levels and some of these other positions, those are actually staff members of your various agencies who provide the direct services. So our role is just to support the mechanism that is operating as staff. So as we look at this, for instance, on the city side, we wouldn't anticipate that there would be a need for any additional staff. We have the staff in place. We do the HMIS, which is your data. We have a great COC program coordinator, program manager in Ms. Floyd. And then the rest of us kind of help buttress the system internally. And then United Way has its own designated staff who perform certain functions to help make the whole system operate. So obviously I can't speak to any potential future staffing needs that United Way may have should it remain in that role. But it's certainly from the staff perspective with the city, we're fairly well staffed to do the pieces that we do to move the system along. It's really how do we get everyone else kind of coordinated on the same page, communications where it is, engagement is where it is, and ultimately service delivery is improved.
And how many staff of your staff work on this?
We have essentially 2 full-time staff who work on it, and then we have a variety of other staff who provide certain other roles, like paying the bills that come into us from the various service providers. So we talk about the ESG, or Emergency Solutions Grants. We have a designated COC program coordinator. That is her role to help move through the payments that our various agencies have under contract with us that we provide. So we have our ESG money, our COC money. So those are the two primary sources that we use to provide support to the various agencies that are serving those experiencing homelessness.
Thank you. You might also, Matt or Ms. Newman, want to remind staff council, that we need to get more communication, because we don't really know what is going on. And I said it, yeah. I know most, but part of this continuum of care is they should be updating us as to what is going on, just like we get reports from every other agency or group that comes here. Right now, we only hear the continuum of care when it's budget time. That is not the only time we need to be hearing from them, because the citizens of Winston-Salem are relying on us to be the accountability piece, the transparent piece, to ensure that everything is working the way it's supposed to work. And we know, in spite of, they've had some great strengths, but they have challenges now. And unfortunately, and maybe fortunately, COVID helped to make all of this kind of bubble up because of the need that's out there now. And I look forward, Mr. Weber, Ms. Newman, on working on this with you, also to help the council get up to speed on what we would be looking for in our updates from the COC, whether it's every 3 months. I think we might need to go with every 3 months if we start this timeline, so we all will know exactly what is going on from the start when we start to make the changes, because I'm sure we're going to get some telephone calls and emails. But at the end of the day, it's for the betterment of the customers and the clients and the citizens that we serve. Thank you. Any other comments or questions from any other council members? Thank you very much. Do we need to vote on this?
This is an action item, yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
May I have a motion for item C3?
I move to approve the report.
I'll second.
It has been moved, Councilmember Clark.
I am not going to support this because I think the organizational chart that's recommended is wrong. It's got a huge organization, an executive committee, and another huge organization. You have said we want this thing streamlined, and that is the opposite of streamlining. So I will not be supporting accepting this report. Thank you.
Thank you. And as Mr. Weber said, we have the ability to change this structure of this program. But you have to remember, we are the pass-through for the government money to all of these agencies from the Fed and the state. So our best bet is to try to make this work and to get it on the right path so it's easier for the customers and the clients and the citizens, as well as for us to be able to understand the mechanisms of this huge organization. Okay? It has been moved and properly seconded. Please vote. And we have 3 yeses and 1 no. Thank you. City Clerk, please call the next item.
Item G1, information on subordination of existing debt for the Heights single-room occupancy building and permanent financing for the development of 12 units of workforce housing in the Heights.
Ms. Newman.
Good afternoon again. I promise this is the last time you have to hear from me. Again, good afternoon, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, and council members. I come to you to discuss the what is formerly known as the SECU Commons, which has now been renamed the Heights. If you will recall, some time ago when the SECU Commons was developed, the city actually loaned money to the development for a 2-story, 20-unit single-room occupancy building. Since that time, the building was never occupied. The initial overarching project did not go forward. The owners of that project sold the property to a developer, Infield Delicate LLC, who is represented here this evening by Mr. Bryce Shearburn, who I will introduce you to in just a moment. Mr. Shearburn has put together a redevelopment plan for that campus, as well as some additional property that's adjacent to the campus. Part of what Mr. Shearburn is proposing to the city is, one, that 20-unit, two-story SRO building be converted into 10 apartments. The second thing he is asking is that the current debt that we have against that property remain in place. And then the third item he is requesting is funding for some cottages that will be developed that he calls the Joy Way cottages. And for those cottages, he is asking that the city provide $290,000 towards the development of those particular cottages. And that is based on a number of the cottages being affordable or workforce housing. And so right now, the current configuration that he is proposing for the Joyway cottages is that the occupants, 2 of those units be for occupants who are eligible for Section 8 housing. 5 of the occupants, or 5 of the units, are eligible for people who are right at 80%, which is what we call affordable. And then his remaining 5 units would be at the market rate. So he is making those 3 requests that, again, we approve the conversion of those SRO units to 10 apartments, that we keep our debt in the deal, and that we also lend another $290,000 for the development of the 12 Joyway cottages. And I will step aside and introduce Mr. Shearburn after I answer Ms. Scipio's question.
The additional money that he's requesting would come from where? The 200 and...
That is to be determined. That is to be determined. Now, the Section 8 units and potentially the 80% units could come from home funds. But that's part of the conversation that we still haven't actually nailed down just yet.
Councilmember Clark,
Yeah,
and then Councilmember Monday.
you can provide these answers later, but just my questions are on the SRO building. The cost there is $936,000. Kind of where's that money coming from? I know it's not our money, but just
He
in
can
general
speak to
where it's
that.
coming from.
Yeah, he can speak to that.
And then secondly, on the Joyway cottages, the total cost is $2.5 million. The city's portion of that is roughly 10% or $290,000. It would be good also to see the different layers of financing that's going into that.
Yes, sir.
And you can provide those later date.
All right.
Thank you. Councilmember Monday.
Our debt that's already in the game,
Yes.
that's not new money. It's really letting it ride, so to speak. So that doesn't have a negative impact on us from a budget standpoint. And we had not budgeted getting that money back. Is that correct?
Pretty much.
Okay. So it would be going for its original purpose, and it was originally a forgivable loan. Is that correct?
Partially. So the original purpose, of course, was to serve a certain population and more individuals. And so now, rather than serving 20 individuals, it will serve 10.
So it's a reduced number of individuals who would receive that service.
Right, and the individuals we were serving were special needs individuals. So there is a little bit of change in terms of who the project will ultimately serve.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes, I know that this is an informational item, and I'm wondering, is there a presentation?
Yes, Mr. Shearburn is going to get up and make a presentation.
Okay.
I will introduce to you Mr. Bryce Shearburn and ask him to come to the podium and make his presentation. He has a
Thank you, Ms. Newman.
presentation on here for you.
Great. Thank you so much, Marla Newman. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee and city council, I'm happy to be here this evening. And as
Your name and address, please.
Bryce Shearburn, I reside at 328 South Green Street in West Salem, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, 27101. And I appreciate the opportunity to discuss this matter. As Marla advised, let's pull these things up. pull some more out of there too, based upon what council member. Let's go to the aerial. And then there's another one on there. Can we get to that? Yeah, that's fine, that's fine. And I'm sorry, technology's not my strong suit. I'm happy to be here tonight to talk about this project. And as Marla framed it and described, this is kind of a do-over out at the Commons. Commons was a well-intentioned project. It was developed, as Marla indicated, back in 2014 or 15. The proposed uses and combination of support services were financially unfeasible. The project never opened. It never fulfilled any of its
Mr. Sherburne, could you talk more in the mic or move the mic if you can?
I'm sorry, is that better?
Yeah.
Sorry. The project, in any event, while well-intentioned, was never able to fulfill its original mission upon which the North Carolina Housing Finance, Federal Home Loan Bank, and city funding was based. It languished empty and unused, owned by a nonprofit, not contributing to tax rolls for a period of about 6 or 7 years. We engaged with North Carolina Housing Finance in order to repurpose the property. We negotiated with them and the stakeholders. At this point, the property was fairly near to foreclosure, which would have extinguished all of the stakeholders' debt in favor of Federal Home Loan Bank. So we were able to put together a group. An important participant, of course, was the city. We came to you in January of 2021 with a request to allow us to assume the existing city money as we reorganized and restructured the campus. We were able to close on the campus in June of 2021, and per our agreement with you, we undertook a market use study and a feasibility study in order to determine what the highest and best uses would be. These were conducted by local consultants, as well as our national multifamily consultant who has special expertise in affordable housing. We delivered, based upon that study, we proposed a redevelopment plan for this portion of the property that we're discussing this evening. We wanted to convert what was a well-intentioned and yet never fulfilled use and need to something that the market study and market demand showed a strong appetite for. That's workforce housing. In the same vein, we wanted to continue that development to support the housing authority's investment in this campus, as well as our desire to develop additional affordable housing. So we put together this redevelopment plan, and we've been working with staff and Marla's group and others for a number of months in order to formulate and refine a plan which we're submitting tonight. And there's been a couple of iterations of that plan. Our original proposal was for 40% of the units to be affordable for a lower income tranche, a 60% AMI tranche. In discussions with community stakeholders and Councilmember Burke, with whom we met, with Aaron King, we reviewed the income tranches and the community benefits and decided to revise our proposal to respond to what we saw as a very strong demand for workforce housing. So we reconfigured the proposal to provide a total of 16 units of affordable housing out of the 22. So that's a total of 72% versus the 40% originally submitted. In those units, as Marla described, we're trying to meet the housing needs of 4 different tenant types. All of them are affordable. The Section 8 units, the 60% AMI units, and the 2 tranches of affordable. And when Marla said market, I just want to, for clarification, 80% AMI and 120% AMI are nominally considered, and indeed, we have projects that you have funded that are affordable. You know, they fall within those requirements. You know, what we're certainly seeing here in Winston is a significant increase in, quote, market rate units well above rent structures for those affordable tranches. So we are firmly committed to an affordable housing element. And essentially, the ask is based upon 4 different factors. You know, we put up the slide that shows the area within which the Commons is located. The Northeast Area Plan identifies this as a mixed-use campus and proposes exactly the uses that we are proposing. Moderate density residential and the existing mixed-use elements. What we have done is we have secured United Health's long-term occupancy on site with a favorable lease term. We are developing the second of the Family Services Early Childhood Education Centers that we've done in collaboration with them, which will open in January, will be finished next month. And they will own that facility and provide, I believe, 110 classroom slots. The third component then is the collaboration with HAWS, Housing Authority, wherein we took the existing 15 units of apartments, we renovated them, we provided them with a much different level of finish and quality than is typically seen in Housing Authority units. The Housing Authority acquired it through their private entity, but these units have granite countertops, dishwashers, washer and dryers in each unit. You know, we do this because in evaluating the market demand and in thinking about housing choices and needs, we believe that there is a way to develop affordable housing that can represent quality, efficiency of design and construction, and sustainability. And that is the nature of our development proposal to Councilmember Clark's request. We have provided, and we have in fact here tonight, all of those detailed indicia of what we're proposing to do. But the development is consistent with the area plan. It's consistent with the zoning. The property has been zoned mixed use special since 2003. You know, what we are proposing is a use permitted by right. And we are focused very much now, as the DOT begins their interchange improvements, on creating a transit-oriented development that provides mixed-use components, you know, in addition to the healthcare clinic and the daycare. In the SRO building is a commercial kitchen, which we will utilize for a nutrition program for family services. There's also a community room. All of this is detailed in our proposal. So we intend to pursue a thoughtful campus development, as was depicted in the area plan, as was confirmed in our market and use study, and what we think is appropriate for the site. In terms of the economics, the SRO building, and let me preface this by saying that one of the things we were able to do, because we acquired this asset for literally cents on the dollar. I mean, it cost $5 million, and we acquired it for $1.5 million. In order to encourage this vision of affordable mixed use, when we did the deal with the Housing Authority, we did not make any money. You know, I mean, we took those units, we renovated them, we transferred them to the Housing Authority in order to facilitate North Carolina Housing Finance to remove their $600,000. So that was our, quote, profit, you know, that was our benefit, which really that was only applicable to those parcels, so it was no economic benefit to us. But we were able to convey those units to the Housing Authority for less than $100,000 a door, less than half of what current delivery is. Similarly, on the SRO, you know, that $936,000 represents about $93,000 a door. If the city requires us to refund the money, our cost structure goes up to $130,000 a door. So that changes the whole affordability index as it translates to rent. Regarding the Joy Way proposal, you know, we have spent a lot of time in design effort to attack some of the cost and structure challenges of building affordable housing. You know, what we have designed is a tool that has rigorous dimensions. You know, it's designed for no waste. It uses common materials. It uses the consistent and same windows. All of these things are designed to give us a little bit better sense of scale and economy. And interestingly enough, to that point, there was a very interesting on-point interview on NPR today with a developer in California who is doing exactly what we are proposing to do, to look at the delivery system for affordable housing and reconfigure it to take advantage of, just as we have at the former Commons. You know, we are basically able to provide these units at a low cost structure because our cost structure is low. And we want to do that because I believe in the benefit to the community of affordable housing, quality housing. And that is what I intend to do for the rest of my professional career. I mean, I'll be out here at the Heights for the next 5 to 7 years. But that is not the extent of my interest in this subject matter.
Thank you, Mr. Schiff.
And one other response, Councilmember Clark. So the dollars, so the 937, I've secured a loan commitment in order to, and I'm also investing $221,000 in that piece, and that's all detailed in the materials provided. So we're asking you basically to let us keep that cost structure, that $95,000, as opposed to paying $130,000. With respect to the Joy Way project, it's similar. It's a private loan I have secured, and in fact I've closed because interest rates were moving rather dramatically. I have construction loan in place for the cottages portion, and I'm putting $660,000 of equity into that deal versus a $1.4 million construction and development loan. And this gets to the real essence of affordable housing development. This is the classic gap financing. I have a cost of 2.5. I have an appraisal of 2.2. I've got a $300,000 gap. That translates to $25,000 per unit, which, as I do the math, is a relatively acceptable, I hope, metric, you know, based upon what I've seen in terms of council actions related to affordable housing.
Thank you. Councilmember Mundy, then Councilmember McIntosh, and then Councilmember Burke.
Couple of questions. That $25,000 per door, does that include the forgivable loan?
Yes, that is the amount of the forgivable.
So with new money, we're looking at
Yeah,
less
you're
than-
looking at $290,000 of new money, which based on the 12 units is like $25,000.
Okay. And how, one of my beefs has been, we talk, we buy land, but I haven't seen anything built. How close are you to being shovel-ready?
I'm shovel ready.
Okay.
I mean, I would have liked to have started this 2 months ago when rates were 4.5 instead of 6.
Okay. Thank you.
So my question was, or observation was, so the SRO building, the density of units actually is going to go down there by 50%.
Correct.
Okay, so what's been approved in the past was 100% higher density than what you're proposing.
Correct.
And my other comment was going to be about the dollar per door on the Joyway. It's $24,166, and that's kind of in our sweet spot as far as what we look for to encourage new construction. So,
Thank you. Councilmember Burke.
Yes, thank you. The reason I ask if there would be a presentation is because a lot of numbers have been thrown out, and we have a lot of community members in the audience who would like to be able to follow and understand exactly what you're asking for. And speaking of community members in the audience, I have a lot of my constituents from the Northeast Ward who are vehemently opposed to this request, and I would like for you all to stand at this time. Thank you so much. I know I heard Mr. Shearburn say that he has been working with Marla and staff. But what you did not say is that you have been meeting with these residents and finding out what they would like to see, to build, to have in their community.
Ms. Burke, if I could respond to that.
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll wait till you're
Thank
finished.
you. I know that I had a meeting, and at the meeting that I had, and it was for another plan, another reason, another purpose, you were there. My constituents made it clear then that this is not something that they are in support of. Let me tell you what they are in support of, and let's be clear. Councilmember Scipio asked, where will these funds come from? And we don't know. But what we do know is that we have taxpayers in the audience, taxpayers who have every right to ask and say, have some voice in where and how their tax dollars will be spent. They also have a right to weigh in on how and where affordable housing dollars will be spent. And let me tell you, since I am their voice, what they have told me is it is a visible difference in the Northeast Ward when you drive through. They want their taxpayers' dollars and any affordable housing dollars to be spent in already existing communities, in communities where we have blight and where it's obvious that we have disinvestment. I think that to ignore them and what they want and what their desires are is just disrespectful. I know that this is a committee meeting and we don't normally give community members an opportunity to speak at committee meetings, but if the chair, if your heart is moved to do that, then that's good. If not, then maybe at another time. But I am their voice tonight. And this proposal, they are opposed to, they don't support it, they feel disrespected, and they feel like their voice has not been heard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Burke.
And Mr. Sherburne, thank you for presenting today. I still have 3 items of reports left, and I have about 25 minutes to get it
I
done.
understand. I appreciate that. I'd like 5 minutes to respond to Councilmember
I can't
Burke.
give you 5 minutes.
Can you give me 2 minutes?
I give you 2 minutes.
Councilmember Burke, we convene community meetings incidental to the rezoning of the property. We convene community meetings incidental to the proposed development plan we submitted to the city. I attended your Winston Lake meeting and presented there. The vehement opposition that you are talking about does not appear to come from the 500-yard neighborhood radius. There were people that appeared at final development plan that object to development, period. And, you know, unfortunately, develop is going to happen. That neighborhood will be changed unalterably by the DOT improvements, unalterably. You know, the objectors, I think, are the Churchland Lane folks, which came to the planning board, and essentially, you know, I don't know how to respond to those objections. You know, the fact is that this type of affordable housing in a meaningful, impactful cluster does far more to benefit tax revenues than trying to do one-offs in blighted neighborhoods. And this one is market-based. This one is validated by market. This one has shown to be feasible, and we are putting $1 million into this deal. We're asking you to let us keep 400 that you've already spent. And we're asking you to validate the city council's often spoken of commitment to affordable housing by funding a project that is appropriate, market-based, and a use permitted by right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is for information only. This will be coming back. There is no vote on it today. It's not going to show up in council meeting next week for a vote. It'll be coming back. Okay? I am moving on to the next episode. City Clerk, next item, please.
Item G2, Human Relations, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department Report for 2021-2022.
And that would be Dr. Wanda Allen Abraha. Oh, Patrice.
Yes.
Ms. Tony, you're up.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Adams and members of the committee and council. Just quickly, I would like to introduce the assistant. He's a new assistant director for the Human Relations and DEI Department. This is Dr. Ronnie Christian. and several members of the the Human Relations Department is present. He will introduce them as well as members of the Human Relations Commission.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon,
Good afternoon.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem Adams, members of the committee, and members of the council. Again, I'm Dr. Ronnie Christian. I'm the new Assistant Director of Human Relations and DEI. And of course, I'm very excited to be here. Very excited to be here. And of course, returning to the city. I have served 8 years with the city once before. 5 years in law enforcement, 2 years in the Human Relations Department, and also a year in workforce development. The last 16 years, I've been working in education in different roles in administration. So I'm excited to bring my experiences back to the city of Winston-Salem, and very excited to be a part of the Human Relations Department. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to our Human Relations Commission representative to talk a little bit about our strategic plan.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Adams and City Council members. My name is Sunny Haynes. I am a commissioner of the Human Relations Commission, and I am very happy to be presenting with our Vice Chair, Melissa Thompson. We're going to be talking a little bit about our annual report for what has been a very eventful year for both the Human Relations Department and the Commission as well. I send greetings from the director, Wanda Allen Abraha, who was not able to be with us tonight, and on behalf of the entire Human Relations Commission. As you all know, we have been very focused on the commission with issues of equality, and we advocated very strongly for the new diversity, equity, and inclusion component to be housed under the Human Relations Department. We were very happy to have that merger happen following the inception of the DEI department, which existed first as a standalone between July and September of 2021. With the addition of the DEI component coming under the housing of the HRD, we've had the additional responsibility of enforcing the non-discrimination ordinances of the city and have been doing very meaningful work in that regard already. I'll also note that the merging of the departments created added responsibility with respect to that, and also led to the promotion of several senior staff members, as well as the addition of six new positions to the department. The Commission and the department continues to distinguish itself with statewide recognition. We were winners of the United Way of North Carolina's Spirit of North Carolina Award in recognition for the diversity work through partnership with Legal Aid to create city grant-funded attorney position and attorney position for eviction diversion. Finally, the Human Relations Commission was also awarded a 3-year grant from the Blue Cross Blue Shield Foundation of North Carolina, and that was used to expand our capabilities with respect to building integrated communities, which, as you know, is our program to help with assistance to newcomers to our community. And as part of that work, we were funded a language access coordinator position, which has allowed us to work with additional expanded capabilities with respect to our limited English and non-Spanish speaking immigrants, refugees, and asylees. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to our Vice Chair, Melissa Thompson, to provide a few more notable highlights.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Our director, Wanda Allen Abraha, had the opportunity to present our current DEI development and work at the State of Black North Carolina Conference, the North Carolina City Manager Summer Conference, and the Leadership Winston-Salem's Lunch and Learn. The department and commission continue to work on development of the eviction diversion network of community stakeholder organizations to develop collaborative solutions for addressing rising eviction rates. We were also selected as a participating city for the National League of Cities inaugural Landlord Engagement Lab to glean national best practices for eviction diversion. And despite the challenges of the pandemic, we'd maintained a strong fair housing and landlord-tenant caseload and managed to continue offering our signature outreach programs such as the Fair and Affordable Housing Summit, Human Relations Student Awards, and International Village via virtual platforms. One of our latest accomplishments is to complete under our increased scope of duties, we successfully completed the City Council-appointed NDO LGBTQIA+ Study Subcommittee's report of recommendations well ahead of the agreed deadline of 18 months. The subcommittee was chaired by Commissioner Joshua Price and included 7 community volunteers, and we are very proud of that accomplishment. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll now turn it over to Brittany Pitts to continue the presentation.
Hi, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem Adams, committee members, and also members of City Council. We meet again. My name is Brittany Pitts, and I am the Equity Assurance Administrator for the Human Relations, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department. I serve on the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division, and on today, I will be highlighting some key details from our DEI Division annual report, and this is from fiscal year 2021-2022, the most past fiscal year. So this past fiscal year, it has been very, very eventful with the creation of DEI and the merge of DEI to the Human Relations Department. However, despite the multitude of changes and challenges, we have definitely embraced them, and we were able to accomplish quite a lot this past fiscal year. Sorry. So our focus for this fiscal year was legal compliance and research, employee training and development, interdepartmental support and consultation as well. And so let me go ahead and move to page 14. Okay. Okay, so the first item that I will be highlighting today is our partnership with the National League of Cities, also known as the NLC. The NLC is the premier resource and advocate for local government, and our department has partnered with them to identify and develop strategies to address systemic and structural inequities. They will also be providing extensive training to our equity core team members over the course of the next year, and actually this month they will be providing a 2-day training on racial equity. It's going to be on October 25th and October 26th, and that training will be for our equity core team members. Some of those key learning topics that the NLC will be, the sessions that they will be training on, the topics will be equity versus equality, also speaking about some implicit and explicit biases, community engagement strategies, and so much more. And so we are definitely excited just about the work to come over the next year. And they will also be providing workshops to the equity core team members as well that is tailored to equity action planning as the city begins implementing an equity action plan for the city of Winston-Salem. Okay, the next item I would like to highlight are the interdepartmental consultations. So we have developed, our department has developed a departmental equity action plan consulting process. So this is a 6-phase process that begins with a listening session where we will meet with department heads to gauge the needs and expectations of DEI and just determine some things that are needed from us on our end. And then we will end with the finalization to review the particulars of a particular department and their equity action plan. And so as you can see, the 3 departments that are highlighted here are Fairgrounds PAF, the Winston-Salem Forsyth Winston-Salem, Forsyth County, Utilities Department, as well as the Winston-Salem Fire Department. And so since the creation of this report, we have beginning meeting with a lot of different, more departments as well, and some of those would be CityLink as well as the Transportation Department. So essentially, we'll like all department heads to know that DEI is here to serve as a resource, and we are here to work collaboratively with our city departments as it relates to implementing and succeeding at DEI-related goals. Okay, so on this page, we have our lovely equity core team, followed by the representatives. And so as you may know, our department has an equity core team, which consists of representatives from all city departments who serve as DEI champions or DEI liaisons. And so the representative list that is on this page, it was last updated here on July 1st, 2022. However, the most up-to-date list is posted on our internal website. And so there have been quite a few changes to this list since last fiscal year, but I am excited to say that we do now have representation from all city departments. And so we are definitely very, very excited for what this year holds. And the final item that I would like to highlight tonight are the cultural competency trainings. And so these are introductory trainings on the protected classes of persons. They are held monthly, once a month, on the fourth Wednesday of every month at 2 p.m. Our city employees are able to register in advance for any one of these trainings. And again, they are introductory trainings, so they're only an hour long, just 1 hour long sessions. You can see the past trainings that are listed here, such as race, sex, religion, ethnicity, and so much more. As of today, we have successfully completed 8 of these trainings. That means that we have had 8 sessions on 8 different protected classes of persons. We also have a training that's scheduled this month for the month of October, and that is on protected hairstyles, and that will be October 26th at 3 p.m. And so we're very excited for this upcoming training as well. And so those are just a few items that I wanted to highlight from the past fiscal year, the DEI Division annual report. We are thrilled to learn more and do more as we further implement DEI strategies within the city of Winston-Salem. And if you had any questions or any feedback, I can take that at this time.
Councilmember Bundy, I got 21 minutes.
Just a comment, I did sit in on the first 2 training sessions. They're offered through Zoom. Very interesting, very well done, and I encourage other council members to take part in those training sessions as well.
Councilmember Scipio.
Just a quick question. Of the cultural competency trainings, about how many people are participating in them?
So on average, we have about, I would say, 50 to 60 registrants who actually sign up to participate. And then on the calls, we are seeing an average of about maybe 40 people who are actually logging in. And then we also send out the presentation as well as the recording to every employee who registers to attend.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Burke.
Thank you. Have we surveyed the employees to see if there are other trainings that they may have an interest in that we may need to add?
So there is a survey that goes out following every monthly training that we do to offer feedback, and there is an opportunity for them to list if there are other topics or things that they would like to see.
Thank you.
Yep. No worries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, council members, Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Good afternoon.
I'm Eleanor Teppets, Human Relations Analyst for the NDOs. It's that one. Like Brittany, I'm just going to offer some very quick highlights through our report. This covers only the first 6 months of the non-discrimination ordinances, January through June. And we were focused at that time on really building a groundwork for the ordinance.
We are having a hard time hearing you.
Oh, I'm very short, and I apologize
That's okay.
for that. Okay. Okay, so this covers only the first 6 months of the non-discrimination ordinances because we only started in January, so this is January through June. We were focused on building a groundwork for the ordinances, getting our documents in places, our templates that we use in the investigative process, creating a website, making our forms available so that people can find them easily on the website, making a brochure, a flyer. There's the website, as you can see. It is very comprehensive. In fact, I would say it is the most comprehensive NDO website of any city in North Carolina that has NDOs. I have checked them all. We had a social media campaign initially to get the word out. We have since moved on to some paid advertising, but at that time we were seeing what we could do with a very low budget. We got a lot of engagement with this, but we still wanted to get the word out further. Here's our brochure. We have handed this out at various city events and at all of our community centers at the city. Flyers, my former colleague, Drashanta, performed 2 trainings for external groups, and we hope to resume that as soon as we get another outreach person in place. And yes, I think that is all of my highlights.
Ta-da. Thank you so much. Not enough can be said about our Human Relations Department and DEI on all the work that you've done, especially COVID took it to another level. I know, I sat in on a lot of those rental eviction meetings, diversion, Ms. Newman and all of us on the ERAP, the money wasn't going out. And then you had all the people who were being affected at the courthouse being brought in, being evicted. And it just seemed like to me, I knew that there was something the city could do. And we called and had a collaborative meeting of all of the community partners who had a place at the table for this type of work during COVID to ensure that people were left whole. So again, even on the NDO, I want to give a shout out to our legal department and our city attorney, Angela Carmen, who worked so diligently, she and her staff, working with Councilmember Mundy and I, and changing and arguing and meeting with people from across the state, that we were able to get it done. Again, a big thank you to the Human Relations Department, DEI, and all of you NDO that work every day for culture, inclusion, and everything else. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Good evening.
Thank you. And tell the director get well soon. I will. City Clerk, would you please call the next item?
Item G3, information on changes to the membership structure of the Forsyth County Historic Resource Commission.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee, and council members. I'm Heather Bratland, one of your 2 Historic Resources officers. We're here tonight just to talk with you briefly, about the makeup of the Historic Resources Commission. We got this spring from the manager's office after some feedback from Mayor Pro Tem Adams about the fact that our Historic Resources Commission did not reflect the diversity of our community. We got some feedback to look at ways to change the structure of our commission in order to improve the representation on the commission. So you can see in front of you our current population data for the city of Winston-Salem and then the makeup of our commission by race. We have 11 white commissioners and 1 African-American commissioner. So currently, the commission serves 4 certified local governments within Forsyth County: the city of Winston-Salem, the town of Kernersville, the village of Clemens, and Forsyth County. And each of those elected bodies appoints members to the commission. Within the city of Winston-Salem, you currently only appoint 1 at-large seat. Each of the other seats that you appoint is categorical, which obviously limits the population of people who are eligible for that seat. So you can see in front of you, currently you have an archaeologist, an HO property owner, which means a resident or a property owner in West End, an architectural historian or preservationist, an H district owner, which is someone from Old Salem, and then your 1 at-large member. So our proposal for the city seats is to maintain the HO and H district representation on the commission, because the primary work of our commission is to do design review for property owners in those districts. We are the people who say, yes, you can use those windows, or no, you can't. But then to take the archaeologist seat and the historic preservationist historian seat and turn those into at-large seats so that we can expand our pool of representation. So that really is the upshot. We're doing some other work around our diversity. We are in the process, actually, of our first meeting tonight of a diversity, equity, and inclusion committee. And we also now have ex officio members on our marker committee from the Human Relations Committee and the African American Heritage Initiative. So we're taking this seriously, and we recognize it's something we need to work on.
Thank you, Heather. Any comments, questions for the commission? Councilmember Larson and then Councilmember Scipio.
I do have a question. It appears that the original plan was to have a certain amount of expertise, professional expertise on this commission based on professional knowledge of historic preservation, architecture, and things relevant to the decision-making that the commission had to make, in all respect to the staff that provides expertise. It would appear you have a large number of at-large positions now, both within the city and the county as a whole, which means the majority of that commission is going to be made up of non-professional, really non-trained individuals within the purview of what has to be done on the commission. Is this of any concern to anybody?
I think that is true. You'll see that we are planning to keep the licensed architect seat, which is an expertise that we really find benefits the commission because they can analyze drawings, they can really talk about what's possible and what's not possible. Of course, staff brings a lot of expertise. And our owners in these districts, just by virtue of owning historic properties, really do bring quite a bit of expertise. And I think staff recognizes that this is the way that it's traditionally been done. We've really weighted expertise and academic credentials, and now we're saying it's time to weight community involvement as we look at how we can potentially also expand some of the things that we do and the programs we offer to other communities in the city.
And instead of removing that expertise off the commission, why did we not just add at-large positions and enlarge the commission?
If that's the commission, the city council's desire, that's certainly something that we can discuss and look at. But as Councilmember Clark said earlier, at a certain point, the larger your commission gets, the more unwieldy it gets. And so we already barely fit in our meeting room as it is. So expanding was not seen as the best way forward.
We have some very skilled African-American historical societies and credible organizations that could contribute directly to this commission. Why were they not targeted to be seated?
They absolutely could, and we have had some members on the commission, like Linda Dark's been on the commission, Cheryl Harry's been on the commission. So we have had representatives from those commissions, but of course we rely on who applies for seats. We can't force someone to come and do design review.
Councilmember Scipio.
My concern with this, if the goal was to get racial makeup, to add more diversity, just adding at large does not make a commission diverse. And so currently, just what you have, the commission doesn't change, you just change the name of that. But I'm concerned about why is West End and Old Salem property owners kept? Why are they important to this commission and a property owner in Happy Hill is not?
Because the primary work of this commission is doing design review for changes to properties in Old Salem, West End, Bethabara, and our local historic landmarks. So those are the people whose properties we're regulating, so that's why we feel it's important they have a voice on the commission. We do not have any other local districts where we do design review. Although that's one of the things where our DEI committee, we hope to start engaging in some outreach with other communities to see if that's a tool other communities are interested, other neighborhoods are interested in having. But that's always a neighborhood-driven effort. We don't go out and recruit neighborhoods to come into our program.
I want to thank you, Ms. Bradlin and Ms. McCullough, and planning and all of you for the work you do. I know that this was not an easy lift for you to come forward to help propose this, Again, you've heard half of the meeting has been about diversity, inclusion, and being intentional. You know, if we are never intentional about trying to change something, it remains the same. I just happened to be at a meeting here, and I was blown away. I was in the audience, and I saw the process, and I was like, wow, this has to change, you know? And I think that this is a first step, just like the COC. We have to begin the process somewhere. So this is the first step in an attempt at meeting with the DEI department and everybody to do better and be better. Thank you all so much. City Clerk, last item, please.
Item G4, Annual Report on Urban Food Policy Council for 2021-2022.
Excuse me, Councilman McIntosh, as they say, can I get 10 minutes on the clock?
You got it.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, committee members, and other city council members. This is actually a new group to the Office of Sustainability, so that's why I'm up here to introduce our Food Resilience Program Manager, who is the staff support to this council, Mariah Gendy.
Yay!
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, committee members, and council members. Thank you for being here this afternoon or this evening. It's my pleasure to introduce the Urban Food Policy Council and introduce myself, Mariah Gendy, as the Food Resilience Program Manager. Our presentation will be led by our chair, Megan Regan, and I will hand it over to her to take over the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariah. Your name and address, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Megan Regan. My address is 137 North Spring Street, Winston-Salem 27101. And I am not sure if the slides are up here, but we don't need them if they are not. But yes, good evening, Mayor Pro Tem. Good evening, City Council members. I'm here as the chair of the Urban Food Policy Council to share with you some of the highlights of our annual report, 2021-2022. It is somewhat of a hybrid of our last year's activity. You should also have a written report in front of you or disseminated electronically. In the spirit of time, I'll let you all read some of these things. Our council members, we were developed by the City Council in 2017, began meeting in 2018. We have 9 seats. Some of our COVID challenges have been some turnover and difficulty in having all of our seats filled. That has somewhat made quorum and some of our work a bit challenging. But here's a list of our council members. We've got council members that are like myself from education, higher education, public K through 12, private K through 12, work in our nonprofit and faith community sectors, as well as actual small-scale urban farmers and grassroots activists within our urban farming communities. We've got 10 important duties developed by you all, and we work hard all year to fulfill these duties through a variety of projects, initiatives, or topics that you all push forward to us to get to work on. Some of our major highlights in the last year were we hosted a 2-day food summit. This was virtual, April 9th and 10th. We had over 30 attendees, presenters, including from the city of Winston-Salem, including Tiffany Oliva, members from our local Urban Food Council, as well as educators, putting together a great 2-day slate of different workshops. We continued support of the Liberty Street Vendors Market. This was a huge project that we took on in summer of 2020 to revitalize, get restarted, and it's just been really exciting and successful, and we continue to support that initiative now that the city has taken over operational and management direction from that. In progress right now, we're working on a policy analysis with the city's urban agriculture program. We know there's a kind of big new strategic vision forward under development, and so we're hoping to inform some data-driven reflections and community sentiment to contribute to that, as well as continue working on improving some of the special use permits for residential livestock programs. Particularly, we were very excited by the improvements in that special use permit that just were approved by the city in the last couple of months. Some of our recommendations for us as a council is to work in more of the 21 local food deserts that we have. We've done a lot of great work in a few, but we haven't touched all of them, and so our goal is to work in at least 2 new food deserts this year as a council. Continue on policy recommendations and policy analysis related to the city's urban agriculture program, and to continue supporting the city's Liberty Street vendors market. I welcome any questions or thoughts you all may have for our council or myself.
Councilmember Clark. Thank you, Megan.
3 quick items. First off, can you send me a little more information on the Liberty Street market, when it's open, closed, whatever you got?
Absolutely.
I'm happy to answer that question, council member. I am the market manager this last year, and our market operated from April through September of this year. We successfully had over 25 markets, and so the market I'll be working this next few months to put together a summary, report of how the accomplishments of the market, as well as some recommendations looking forward to next year's season. Okay, thank you. Yes. Number 2, can you comment briefly? You had on one of your points, something about water.
Yes, absolutely. We have gotten a lot of requests from small-scale farmers within our city to address some of the challenges of water access. And there's been, I'll kind of self-identify, I'm an economist, and so I know often we have policies that just have some unintended implications or outcomes. And so one of the challenges that a lot of small-scale farmers face is water access from a cost perspective, from an infrastructure perspective. And in the initial urban agriculture program, there was some water access provided through fire hydrants, and there was a misunderstanding of a state law that prohibits using water from fire hydrants without a backflow regulator, which, short story long, is just a very expensive piece of equipment that protects our city's water safety, which is so important because we have really great water, right? I think we're a top 10 city. So some of those challenges remain in how some of our small-scale farmers have some of their water needs met, and or the cost structure around some of the equipment requirements to tap into some city water opportunities. Currently, in some of that urban agriculture analysis that actually I'm doing right now is looking at some decentralized approaches through things like rainwater and catchment systems that would not require tapping into larger infrastructure or utility programs. Of course, it relies on the variability of the rain, which is always risky, but it has a more decentralized approach, and we're looking into some cost-benefit approaches there.
Of course, farmers have been at the mercy of rain for thousands of years.
That's right. You want to know it's a risky profession, just ask a farmer, right? I trust the weather.
Well, the last one is a comment. I have a different opinion on food deserts than the typical people do. Mm-hmm. I think it's a transportation issue. Mm-hmm. If you had to put a grocery store within a half a mile of everyone in the city, so if they had to walk, it would take, and get a map out, do it. We're 10 miles by 10 miles. How many dots do you have to put on that map to have a grocery store within walking distance of every citizen? It would take hundreds of grocery stores. I don't think we need 30 or 40 more grocery stores. What I think we need is a way for people to get to them. You can stand at a certain place on Stratford Road and see 5 or 6 full-service grocery stores. Now, why there's so many in that area, I don't know. But anyway, so I do think part of the answer is transportation, because if you do have access to a car, and I can speak from personal experience, my mother, quote, did live in a food desert, but as long as she could drive her car, it wasn't a problem. Now, at one point, she lost her car because she got too old to drive it, and we did have a problem. But that was the family problem. But my point being is I do think that in this city, at least, the answer is better transportation to the grocery stores, because there's plenty of them out there. Thank you.
Councilmember Scipio.
Thank you. Does your committee or your council deal with the community gardens? Do you guys discuss that, or does that come under another part?
We have done work with community gardens, direct work with community gardens. We haven't for a couple of years, but we have worked directly with a few different community gardens and city council as well on those.
And when you're thinking about them, are there discussions around composting for the community gardens themselves or neighborhoods?
That's mostly, Ms. Reagan, I'll take that, and Mariah, that's mostly the Forsyth County Extension. They collaborate off and on, the Urban Food Policy Council, the county's policy council, it's like 5 or 6. But the county is the one that basically does the community gardens. They're over it. I went through their master garden training years ago. That's their thing. And anyone that wants to look up or see, they will train you and teach you how to compost. But I can't remember whether I talked to Mr. Taylor or Reagan, Megan, with you, that I feel like, and I've mentioned to the council, that we already pick up recyclables, we pick up wet waste. My thing is, when everybody finally got some mindset as to recycling, why wouldn't we start training or a prototype lodge of composting? That we do it with the leaves and it's gone. Once the city composts it in the spring, that stuff is gone like within a day or two, because people want it. And I believe that if we did this on a regular basis, we could get more people to buy into the composting that we all know with the wet waste, food, and that sort of thing, and have somewhere for them to take it. It was discussed, as a matter of fact, at the Piedmont Environmental Alliance last year and this year, that we need to look at that, you know?
Thank you. I'll follow up with PEA, Jamie Meyer, and also look into those connections at the county level with the community gardens.
Any questions, comments? Thank you so much. You guys going to the ribbon cutting Saturday?
Oh, yeah, and some of our
All right,
Liberty
that's
Street
what I'm
vendors will
talking
be
about.
there as well if City Council Member Clark wants to come out and meet some of them.
That's what I'm talking about. Thank you all so much. Meeting's adjourned, and Public Works
Public Works will meet at 6:15.